Hi folks, this video is going to cover major scales. It's going to basically introduce two ways of building major scales and go over some common mistakes that I find in when grading students' papers on major scales. So let's start with the first way of building a major scale, and that's using two tetrachords. The idea behind a tetrachord is that you build one and then you build another one a whole step above. A tetrachord has a tonal relationship. Pretty simple. Whole step, half step. Let's start with good old C major. So you start on a note, in this case C. Whole step above is D. Whole step above D is E. And then a half step gives you F. Let's try a few more tetrachords before we stack them. Let's try G. G, whole step above is A, whole step above A is B, a half step above B is C. One more. How about D? Start on D, whole step above D is E, whole step above E is F sharp. See how I use this sharp there to alter the note so we maintain that whole step relationship. And then a half step above F sharp is G. Now if I was going to continue and write the full scale, in this case starting on D, so it'll be a D major scale, we would start a new tetrachord a whole step above the note we left off. So we left off with G, go to, let's try a different color here. Go to A, whole step above, B, whole step above, C sharp, and then a half step. So now you have the first tetrachord and then the second tetrachord. This is one way of writing and building major scales. Some things to note: always keep consecutive letter names. Don't double up on letter names while you're writing your scale. It should be 7 pitches, and then the 8th one being the octave above and or below, depending on the direction you're writing the scale. So that's one way of constructing major scales, using two tetrachords. Probably not the most popular, but it's good to know it. Let's try one more, or rather the other way I was going to describe building and writing major scales. Let's do this in bass clef. Let's start on B flat. And this is using the full tonal relationship in a major scale. It's basically the intervals between each of these scale degrees. So if you're still learning or just beginning to learn major scales, this is the tonal relationship that would be good to memorize. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. What I'm saying is this intervals: whole step, half step, etc., etc. So let's spell it. B flat is our starting note. You can start at any note, and as long as you follow this tonal relationship, you're good to go. B flat, C, whole step above B flat, whole step above C is D, half step, E flat. Notice I'm using accidentals to alter the pitches so we maintain that tonal relationship. Next one, whole step above E flat is F, whole step, G, whole step, A, and then a half step, B flat. It's good to know these in treble clef and bass clef. I explore writing with key signatures in a separate video, so check those out, which is be a good thing to look at for writing these with key signatures. Let's go back to treble clef. Now I want to cover some common mistakes that I see with writing scales. The first one is basically not using consecutive letter names. Let's start with A flat. So we're going to start on A flat major scale. All right? We know our relationship and Most people, when they're at this point, can play the major scales. They know, they understand how it sounds, and they know if you play a wrong note, it sounds incorrect. Here's where the mistake happens in writing it. Most students, when the A flat, they know the next one's B flat, they know the third one's C, but then I see this. That, my friends, is a big no-no. You need to use consecutive letter names. If we wrote in the actual letter names, A, B, C, C, E, we're missing a D. Just looking at the letter names. All right, and then you obviously add in the accidentals. But this does not constitute, and again, writing it, a major scale. Okay, you need to use consecutive letter names. So be sure to use that. Plus, when using key signatures and thinking of tonal centers, that is probably the best way to learn it, is by key signatures, and knowing that in a key you're not going to have both sharps and flats. You're going to have, let me clarify, in major keys, you're going to have all flats or all sharps, not both. Another common mistake is just not being aware of the tonal relationship. Some students will understand, okay, I get it, Leonard. We got consecutive letter names there. There you go, man. There's my A major scale. Well, no. That is an A scale, but it is not the A major scale because we didn't follow the tonal relationship. Let's take a look. You got to have a whole step. Let's do a different color. You got to have a whole step here. We don't have a whole step here. That's a half step, so we have to alter it by writing the sharps in. Then that gives us a half step here. We have a whole step here. We only have a half step here, so we need to write a sharp in there. It looks a little sloppy, sorry. And then the second to last note, you need a sharp here. Some very key features about a major scale, and I'm jumping ahead because we haven't covered intervals, but we do know some of the basic intervals like whole steps and half steps. In a major scale, other scales it's a bit different, but in a major scale, the last note and the second to last note always needs to be a half step. So that's a good indicator right there. That needs to be a half step. All right? Let's do another one in a flat key, and that will wrap up our major scale discussion. And I erased the tonal relationship. I'm hoping by this point we should know our tonal relationship. I'll talk us through it as well. How about E flat? So we're going to start in E flat. We're going to write our E flat major scale. All right? Consecutive letters, F, G, mean A, you gotta have a B, C, D, and E. Now we start with E flat, better end with E flat. Again, just from writing the actual major scales out. So some students say, well, that's it, man, I'm done. No, you're not. You gotta make sure you have that tonal relationship. Let's see. That's a whole step. That's a whole step. This needs to be a half step. I'll write a different color. Okay, so be sure to write in A flat. Fourth scale degree, always going to be a half step away from the third scale degree. And continuing on, we need a whole step relationship between the A flat and B. So we need to flat that to B flat. Then that makes that correct, B flat to C, and then C to D. So in a very short time, we just explored and went through a couple of major scales. Good luck on your music theory studies. Have fun.